Welcome back to Gardens, the Untold Story with myself, Ken Somerville, and our co-host, Andy Lopez, the Invisible Gardener, talking about worm farming secrets today. And Andy, you've been doing worm farming for decades. I've quite familiar with worm farming.
I think it's 100 years.
You're old, I'm not quite as old, although I have more gray.
Well, I started when I got out of the service in 70. I got the name Invisible Gardener in 70, by the way. I formed I don't know how I told you how I got the Invisible Gardener, but I basically started school. So the first thing I did was making compost. And so I would make, and then I realized that one of the richest composts is worm poop, right? And so I got into worms really, really early. So I was able to have. So when I would make, I made a mistake and I put worms in the compost pile. Okay, okay.
So I cooked your worms.
Yeah, I cooked my worms. They're crispy. They were crispy for a while. So it took quite a few years to figure out. No, I can't do worms in my. It's not compost, and it wasn't really It was actually kind of a form of vermiculture because you were feeding the worms. But normally, I think. My opinion of vermiculture is basically you get your food waste, you give it to the worms so they eat that, and you're not really so much growing worms for the liquids that you're using. So that's to me a little slightly different setup. I feed the worms. I mean, I buy food for them and I feed them. So I have a surprise for you guys. So I'm going to just start this, and I hope I did it right because otherwise it'll work. So here we go. Mm-hmm. So you guys can see this okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
So talking about worm farming, and I'm going to reveal to you as much as I can in this time period. We talk about it over and over again, how bad the water is, right? We know that, right? Yeah. So you cannot have a worm farm without water filter. Now, this is the one I have now. It's not the best one. There's two of them on the market. I happen to be using this one now. But the other one is called Garden Grow, which I was using before in the beginning because there's nothing else around. When I decided I wanted to have a filter for my garden, for my worms, and for my compost, I went to the hardware store and I bought a shower filter and I hooked it up to the hose, and that was my filter. Okay, yeah. So I'm sure there's plenty of other. I bet you Michael has his own great source of water filtration.
Actually, he sells one on his website, Andy, and that's Michael. Guys from oh geez.
Hey, Lily, pull it up.
Guy.
Let's get Lily to pull it up. Pull up Michael's because if I had known, I would just promote his because you want to keep it in the family, But basically, Boogie Board is pretty good. It lasted me for several years. You want to filter out the water because it will kill the worms. They will not like that. The microbiology in your worm. So this is my. So right now, what I'm going to show you is the adventures of the worm farm because this is. I moved in 4 places in the last 2 years. So this is one of the places I put my worm farm in, and I think I had made it so that it's supposed to be from the beginning to the end. I don't know why I started here because it really should be in the very, very beginning. Maybe I'll look at it again. Let's see. No, that's the beginning, all right. Okay, so basically you can see that it's a cattle trough. It's basically a cattle trough that I put on a what do you call it, frame. Now you can make worm farms out of anything, any shape, anything. So you can look on the YouTube here. You said worm farm. People will show you wooden worm farm structures. I saw one they call it a tower. It's really cool. I almost bought it. It's called a tower, and basically it's got shelves. It goes higher than me, and it has a water that circulates through it. You put the worm in there, and the worms eventually wiggle up to the next one, wiggle up to the next one, circulates the water down. It has a little pump that takes all the juice out and pumps it out to another place. So you have so many different varieties. So I did this one because I'm one, lazy, two, I make a lot. I use it a lot, and I find that this type of system works for me really, really well. And so I basically just designed it so that if you guys have any questions, it's tough because I can't see the comment section. Oh, I can see the comment section. Hey, Scotty. artesian water. That is perfect. Yeah, man. You gotta have clean
Very
water.
lucky.
You have to have clean water. So this one here, it's basically it's on a tilt, and your head's not wrong. It is tilted because I want the liquids to flow out the other end. So the other end over here, see, is where I will put right over here is where I will put a tray to catch it. Now, like I said, I tried to put this in order. For some reason, I decided to. There's a frame that I built. I'm very proud. I'm not a carpenter, but I put this thing together. Okay, it was I had to take 2 classes, and so what I did was I drilled holes in the bottom of it. You see, let me back up a second. Right there, see it?
Yeah, right there on the bottom.
Yeah, right here is a little drill hole. Ideally, it depends on how you want to do it. If you're really a carpenter type of person, you can maybe symmetrical. You can do more things. I probably could have done a little bit more over here on the other side. The idea is the liquid will drain out through there. Okay, that's the idea. And that's why it's on an angle to catch it, to make it go that way. So here's another view of it. This is a 4 feet by 4 feet long, 2 feet wide. Okay, and it's about 2 feet high.
Yeah.
And it's made out.
Lily says, Andy, I'm a carpenter's daughter, and you're doing a nice job.
Oh, thank you. You would say that anyway if I screwed up anyway. You know, you're such a nice person.
So no, she wouldn't. No, she wouldn't. She'd be honest. I get it all the time.
So I made that as a place because you do not want to have this sitting in the sun. It's metal, right? So metal will heat right up and fry your worms. In the wintertime, it'll get really super, super cold. So it's not an ideal system unless you have it enclosed. So that's what I did. It's a little cottage shack. I rented in Malibu. I rented for $3,000.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
Yeah, you know. So, and this is the first. I don't know. Maybe I have copies, or maybe it's just going in a circle here. I'm gonna see because it's showing the same thing over and over again. I know it is good. Let's move on to something else, guys. So what I did was I put in. You want to layer it, right? Yeah. And there are a couple of things about it that you want to do. You want to have, and there's a hole. See, right? Yeah. This version, I did it. I didn't do it right, but normally what I do is put a screen there. So I go to the hardware store and buy one of those filter, one of those screens for the kitchen. You know, and put it there, screen. But I basically collected everything in my neighborhood. That's what you want to do, is to get all the biology from your local area, right? Whether it be browns or you don't have to. You notice they're all like this is manure. You notice there's nothing really green in there. We had talked about, if I put a layer of a lawn in there, it'll be mush. The worms will die.
Exactly. And we got a question, Andy. So let's take a look at the question.
Okay.
Would painting it white help reflect the light absorption and keep it from heating as much?
Right. There are many. So the latest version of what I did, I'll show it to you before it's over with, and it'll kind of go over that. What I did was something different. But yeah, you can paint it white. What I would do is to way before you use them or anything, have it filled up. You want to paint it white, let it totally dry. You want to use something that's non-toxic. So you have to be real careful what you use around it, because these guys will go, hey, I went outside and I was sniffing the paint again. It's like, holy cow, I like that stuff. Yeah, so I'll explain to you what I did to it. And so I put different layers that I had around here. Basically, I collected a bunch of different things. Doesn't matter if it's green, it's okay too. They love the carbon. They like all, they need all this stuff. So I do different layers. This is something I've been doing myself for a long time. So basically, and then I also bought a bunch of worms. So these guys are African red wigglers.
Okay.
I ate half of them. Oh God, I love the worms. They're fried and delicious.
I thought you went fishing.
Yeah. See, those are African red wigglers. It's little babies, and you can use
Uncle Jim's,
you can use African red wigglers, or these are European night crawlers. You can use those.
I thought those were a little bit bigger than the red wigglers.
Right, and you can put them both together. They're friendly with each other. They're not going to eat or fight or any of that stuff. Yeah, and then I added. This is what Michael likes to talk about. It's biochar. So this is biochar. I put a whole bag of biochar. I layer in there. So you want to do a layer. on the regular. What I do is you're going to have to learn to layer this on a regular basis because these guys who go through this, and so this is basically the screen that I said you get. I cut the screen out to put it down in there, but next time I use the whole thing. I just put the whole thing down. It makes a nice little place to keep, because when I did it before putting that, the worms were getting out to that little hole. How did you guys figure out? I'm going, wow. So I just use the whole thing. I said, the heck with that. I'm going to put that down into the place there where the holes are at. Put everything on top of it so the worms don't get out. You see, right? So you want to have a filter there. There are lots of different ways you can do the worm farming thing. It depends whether or not. This way, they're all right there. So they love newspapers. Nowadays, all the newspapers are biodegradable. No toxins in the lead. None of that stuff in there, right? The only thing you don't want to do is the shiny color pages. That's bad. A lot of cardboard, a lot of things you can buy, like shopping bags, paper shopping bags, all recycle. As long as you see the recycle, the only thing you want to do is you want to cut out anything that's glued together. You know how they handles glued together. You want to do that. And then you water it down a little bit. The water that I use, by the way, is
the filtered.
Yeah, the filtered water, plus I basically run through my system. So I get the worm juice, run it through, I make some liquids out, right? Well, guess what? I also not only do I spray for my business, but I also spray it back onto the newspaper and everything else that goes in there. So this is the way it looks. This is not now. I've said we got a little bit of time, so I've showed you from the very beginning when in Malibu. I'm not showing you when I was very beginning in Malibu because I lived up Deer Creek and had a little farm up there. See, so I don't have any pictures of those. But this is just the last 2 years that I've been that I bought this worm farm 2 years ago. I moved 4 times. Worm farms are not very good at moving. When I tell the worm, okay, guys, we're all going to move now. You're going to say, we're going to do what? So I had to take them off, put them in little containers, take them. They're going, oh, we're dizzy. Oh my God, we're on. You know, when we get to another spot, then they get, oh, nothing happened. Oh, you just moved. Oh, by the way, so you can see the end here. I should see it. So the end, those things on the bottom there, right?
Okay, pause it.
They have castor oil and canola oil in there. They sit in canola oil because if they were to sit there, the ants will climb up. Ants will take the worms away. They would just drag them out, and they would see the worm. Oh my God! There'd be a big fight. Ants are meat eaters. So worms like, oh boy, worms. And then they would move into that colony. So it had ant colony in your worm farm. Mm-hmm. So this is an easy way to do it. At first, I put water in the water. The ants would throw themselves on top of the water, and the ants will walk on top of the dead bodies. Right. And you spell gardener wrong. Oh my God. Oh no, I can't. I'm going to faint. Oh my God, I can't look at it. Oh, it's a curse that's been following me around for years. When I did a radio show, people call me up. We can't find your website because it's not there. And I said, well, how do you spell gardener? And they go, G-E-R-D-N-E-R. No. That's what he did. Shame. You should kick him off. Kick him off now.
Well, and as Lily's pointing out, if you ever do a bee bed up, you do basically the same thing so that you keep ants from going in. Yeah.
That's right. I'm in the process. I'm going to get a beehive here real soon. And so this just shows you the worms. And by the way, I have to tell you, so they did 5, but I had to move them 4 times.
Yeah.
4 times. So worms are pretty much like, they're not used to their earth being moved around, right? You know what I'm saying? They're used to going in there, and that's their place. They have their condos, everything all set up. Like the ants, you can't pick them up and move them somewhere else. It's not normal, okay? And so, unfortunately, I'll go through it some more. Anyway, so this is what it looks like. It's really cool. You see the tray there catches the liquids.
Yeah.
See, right? And this unit here, right now, it makes me the concentrate, I get about 5 to 10, maybe 15 or 20 gallons a week. It depends upon what's happening, because I just opened my store here. So what I'm doing is I'm telling people I'm selling my worm juice $10 a gallon. The stuff that I already make that's ready to use.
Yeah.
So I get this liquid, and I'll show you in a little bit. I run it through, and I end up with this See, I could take 1 gallon of my worm juice and end up with 50 gallons of it. I could literally have a 50-gallon drum and everything and make 50 gallons overnight, and you could not tell the difference. Which, by the way, I have a microscope now.
Cool.
Let me show you this, guys, because I'm going to be hooking it up to the computer. So I just want to show it to you. There it is. See?
Let's get you on big screen there.
See?
Nice.
Thank you, Rob. Rob is my next door neighbor. He watches this show, and he said,
cool.
I got a microscope for you. So thank you, Rob. So what was I talking about? Who are you? What am I doing? I have put a top on it, by the way. You see, now it's gone through many different variations. The one I did in Florida was not like this at all. They've always been different. And so, so that's basically a little video of it. You can see how it works. Very, very simple technique. I don't know what's going on with the rest of this. There you go. So I'm going to move on to this. So this is basically me feeding it. That came from the kitchen. I have different kinds of things that I buy seed for them. They like apples. They like bananas. They do not
tomatoes.
like. Well, I haven't given them tomatoes yet.
They love tomatoes.
Oh yeah, because
you have to consider what the worm is actually eating, Andy, and it's consuming the biology that's breaking down those food scraps. So it's not eating the say the banana. It's eating the biology that's eating the banana.
That's a good way to look at it. Because I always avoid giving them hot things, spicy herbs, stuff like that.
Low on citrus, not very much citrus.
I haven't given them any citrus. That's just from experience. So because I would do it and they would not like it. I can tell they start to die off, and the citrus is still be there going, hey, eat. They like avocados, but it's really cool that the way you put it, that they're eating the biology, who's eating the fruit. Yeah, right. So you can see in this one they have see the worms are there. They like the newspaper. They like the cardboard. They definitely will go through this, and so. One of the things that people need to understand about how this thing works in terms of the liquid, because people have called me up and said, I have all these worms and they're not doing anything. When am I going to get the liquid, right? Well, here's the thing. So in this container, for example, they're not in the soil, right? They're not in the ground. So normally you don't have to clean up the ground that they live in, right? Mm-hmm. Rain, other things. Air circulation, all kinds of stuff. But in a container like this, right, it's basically a container. You have to basically keep it clean for them. If they just live in there, it's going to get really bad. They're all going to die eventually. Yeah, that's been my experience. So once a year, I take everybody out. The very, very bottom layer, maybe like a foot, is this magical thick stuff. It's not going to get any better than that. And it's like super compost. It's really, really heavily
That's
layered.
pure worm castings. Like I know on my worm farm, I actually built a Tremel that I could run through to get the worm castings out, keep the worms to add them to a new bin.
What's a Tremel?
Let me bring what's that?
A tool that you use to
let me just
is it something Canadian?
No, it's not Canadian.
It sounds French.
If I can figure out how to spell it right.
Tremel. Tremel. So this is the third move. I moved it to another place. And so there's a process of putting all the cardboard back in again. So basically I harvested the amount that was in there and I started all over again. You see I bought a whole bunch of worms. You can see them in their little worm package. I got about 10,000 worms to start with, all you really need. I know they like bananas, so I give them a nice clean banana in there with them. There's the biochar. I always somehow, and I don't know why, it's like cooking. I always end up using the right stuff, right? So I've been using biochar before they even call it biochar because I noticed it's all organic gardening's fault, right? These guys are like, and if you guys haven't heard about Acres USA, you really have to start getting that because Acres USA. What is this? Triple? Wait, let me see.
Yeah, these are here. It's see the spinner here.
Where?
Let's see if I
Oh, the
can bring it up
spinner.
a little bit. Yeah. So you
Right.
put it. It's people use it for separating compost. You
Yeah.
can do for worms.
That's how
But
you
it's
do worm
basic.
castings, right? You keep the worms in there and let the
Yeah.
castings fall down.
Yeah,
Right.
the castings come out and then the worms come out the bottom end because it's at an angle as well. But that's a trommel.
So what I would do is I would play music. La 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 la. After a while, I didn't have the heart to keep doing that, so I devised a way to make the worms move over to one side of it.
Yeah.
You can literally do that because I remember as a youth, I would when I had a shovel. Okay, guys, tomorrow I'm going to be turning this part over here over. I don't want to see a single one of you guys. You all go over there. And sure enough, they go over there because I'm there digging. Because whenever I cut into a worm, they would go, "Oh my God, there goes."
They don't like that.
Oh no, they're not the kind that split into two. Some people think, well, then you have two worms. I don't think so. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the one out of her place. I'm not going to mention any names, but she'll know who it is if she's watching this. And you see, it was totally redone all over again. In the back over there, they had really bad ant problems, so I had to make sure nothing was climbing up around it or anything like that. Because the ants will, I seen them one take his twig up the branch and lay the twig down. They were running back and forth, and I would come back in a week and going, "Oh, you guys." And I get nasty notes from the worms. The worms saying, "You were supposed to be taken care of. Where are you? We're being attacked." And so I basically, there was the worms again. See, yummy, aren't they cool? Yeah, they're great, huh? Yeah.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah. So I got them from a slightly different source that time, but there's a newspaper, and I would cut up the cardboard. Those things I ran through the shredder. That's the best way to do the cardboard. Run it through a shredder. You want to get it. Don't give them the plastic. They don't eat the plastic black. No good. No plastic is no good. And like I said, that little unit right there makes me. I could do I get at least 10 gallons. 2.5 gallons I put into a 100-gallon sprayer.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is not just by itself, because that's one thing just to make the juice and spray that. You see what I mean? But I told you about super seaweed. That is the product that goes into this mixture.
Yeah, so you're adding more. Now, Andy, I do want to or the only concern I guess I have is that, people look at this methodology and they look at getting out the leachate. There's one concern, like you're using your product and putting it on trees, not so much on food crops, because the problem that I've always had with the leachate or the worm liquid is if you're putting in your vegetables, etc., you do have the potential of having salmonella in there. And if you're, applying that when you're running the water through, you get the salmonella in there and you're applying it to your food crop, you can have a problem. But you're doing a methodology using trees, so you're not going to ever eat that. So there's not so much worry, but that is a concern.
Well, I use it in my vegetable garden.
Yes, and that is my only concern, is there is that potential that you can get a pathogen from the food that you're putting in. Like I know I've watched a lot of people doing what you're doing, different methodologies and that, but the same thing, running the liquid through to get the leachate, but they're feeding they're not feeding green material like that. They're feeding like a worm chow. But that's the only concern I would ever have using leachate.
Let me ask you a question then. So that would be true if I would just take the worm juice and make more worm juice and spray it. I for sure, but what I do, and that's why I was talking about my super seaweed product.
Yeah, you're adding more.
I'm adding that to the liquid.
Yeah,
and super seaweed product has a variety of things, including the wood vinegar.
And actually, somebody was talking about wood vinegar, so maybe we'll jump on that question. Perpetual was mentioning what is wood vinegar and how does one make it? And do you want to explain it, Andrew, or would you like me to?
you missed the whole show. As a matter of fact, we had 2 shows on it, right? You know, so
I
maybe
know.
you want to watch that for detail. But basically, it's a certain way that you burn a wood,
Pyrolysis.
right? And there's a certain way to burn it so that you end up with the a black coal. It's not like coal, but it's a carbon product.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to explain a little more on the process, or you maybe want to tell them
Sure.
the show?
When you're doing a burn in making biochar, because it's the liquids and the vaporization of the material in the biochar, you're condensing that just like you would in a rotovap. Okay, you're heating it up, it's gassing off, and then you're condensing it back down. You get a lot of different products, not just wood vinegar. You can literally get oil, you can get a gasoline, but the wood vinegar is one of the components that you get from a burn. And that's what you would see in from smoke landing on leaves. You'll get a filmy coating, and that's a wood vinegar. The only way to make it is to do a burn with the like whatever system you're using, but you have to capture the smoke, condense it to get it. So it's not that easy to do perpetual. I would recommend finding somebody that does something like that in your area. No, perpetual is the person asking the question, and Michael does sell it. The perpetual is overseas, so I don't know that Michael would ship it over there.
So listen, what I wanted to actually was, here's the thing. So I had so many different. So I've been doing this for a long time, but basically I feel that the mixture that I'm adding, for example, just the wood vinegar alone would suppress any of the salmonella, anything along those lines. Along with there's tons of different mycorrhiza, tons of different bacteria, enzymes, trace minerals. I don't think that they would survive in there at all. This is my opinion. I've been doing this for a long time, and I haven't really encountered anybody else that has that too. I think that's the difference. If you just take that liquid, because the liquid, you know, when you make compost, I always tell it has to have a certain temperature to kill off the bad guys. And if you don't do that, that's the problem with these compost bins that are like the tumblers. Yeah, they don't get very hot. And those little tiny ones that have little shelves, they don't get very hot at all. And you could literally be passing diseases right along left and right. So that's not the good process. So I think that may be slight difference. And also, too, doesn't aerating do something to it if you aerate it a lot?
Pardon me. I was looking at the comments. Sorry, Andy.
I like when you have that blank look in your face. I think that's pretty cool.
It's like, what did you say? So you're adding a lot of different components after you've taken the leachate. Then you're adding a bunch of other stuff and allowing the biology, etc., to work through it as well.
Aerate it.
Yeah, and you're aerating it, and that is, I think, one of the big things is the aeration, to promote that type of a biology, because the bacteria needs anaerobic conditions, and if you're aerating it, you're not having those anaerobic conditions. But I'm not worried about what you're doing, Andy. I'm worried about the people watching the show not understanding that there is that concern, and they don't want to just take that, and mixing it, like you're doing a 1 to 100 ratio, I think you said.
Also too, if I like using animal manure, but if you're not using animal manure, you don't have to worry about the salmonella at all. But you do have to worry. Same thing when you're doing compost. If you have, I used to drive around and get all different kinds of animal manure, and so I had to make sure that I wasn't kind of spreading animal manure all over the place. You know what I mean, right?
And it's also a carbon source that heats up your compost too, and that's where, like, a normal compost, you want it, I think, 150 or 170 degrees. I don't think you. I know myself, I would never go over 130, which is, because that's where you really start killing off the higher levels of biology.
Yeah.
But it's all, a lot of it is what you're putting into it and what you're doing with it. Like you said yourself, once a year you're taking your entire bin, you're cycling it out, getting out the worm castings. Myself, I take the castings, I put them in pantyhose, and then that's what I use to get the biology.
So what
So
I
I'm
do,
making a leachate that way, but it's already dried worm, or processed worm castings, so you don't have to worry so much about any of the bad bacteria.
so when I was in Florida, I used to actually dry when I did my worm farm, I would dry it,
Mm-hmm.
compact it, and I don't remember if I had a press. I remember making a block and get
Okay.
the parchment paper, wrap it up. So you have this little thing that was really dry there, but it wasn't really totally dry. You can take a chunk of that, make a tea from it on a regular basis, and use it. Especially, and majority of things I do is spray trees, plants, flowers, roses, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do spray gardens, but I haven't had any salmonella pop up yet in all the years I've been doing. So something in this mixture, in the air, the aeration, and all that stuff, I think it really controls it to a big degree. The rock dust by itself, I think it has something to do with it. So you should, and definitely the wood vinegar controls. It's one of the things you can use wood vinegar for, is to spray diseases that kills it on contact as well. You can see it's dripping there. And so
actually I have us up, Andy, so just hold on, I'll put it back up. So you might want to go back a little bit, because we've been talking full screen here.
Oh, go back a little bit. Yeah.
Now we see it collecting the liquid in the bottom. Like, I've seen one that they had like 8 or 10 bins, big bins that they were doing this, and they would actually take that liquid, pour it back in at the top of the system to let it run through again to concentrate it that much more.
Exactly right. There's lots of ways. It depends how much you're into this, because you could literally, like I said, you can make the way, I've learned to concentrate. You can really, I could run it through. Like this one guy I told you, basically he has all the shelves. He pumps it up. He pumps the water up if you want to. You can pump it up. It'll come right back down again. Every time it's thicker and thicker, and absolutely amazing. And then you have a concentrate that you then bottle it or use it.
Yeah.
I've learned.
Well, I would suggest using it, if you're bottling it, leave the top off, or else you're gonna have an explosion.
Well, what's interesting too is that I just recently did some of that, and I put some in my normal bottle that I was used for the concentrate. Put the top on it, and after a week, nothing. It didn't puff up. It didn't do anything. It just sat right in there. But I did keep it in a cool place, so maybe something just kept it. I smelled it. Normally I was expecting to do just that, start bubbling and get bigger and more, open the top, that's usually what happens. So I have to look at it and see what's going on. It does work though. So I take $100 bills, I slice them up, put them down here.
Yeah.
So this is another source of worms.
Okay. I know I don't even have a worm bin right now. I'm not even sure if I want to start one.
It gets too cold there, doesn't it?
Well, I have to keep it in the house. I can't have it outside.
Exactly right. You have to have it in the house, because even here in Malibu, I have it in my garage because I couldn't keep it outside at night. Let it go down to the 30s and low 40s. You know what I mean? When I was in Camarillo, same thing. I had to figure out how to deal with it. So imagine having it someplace else where it snows, right? You have to literally have it inside, in a barn or someplace where you control the temperature.
Yeah. Cool? You can't let it get it to too cold.
So this is where it's at now. So this is my backyard. I put it inside. See, so it's in the closet there, and it's just recently it hasn't been I haven't filled it up to the top yet, so it's not really producing. So every time I make them, I end up making it slightly different. And so basically I had a little worm farm right here, which I'm going to transfer the worms to. So when I was in Port Hueneme, this is what was making me my liquid. There's little layers of worms in there, see? So all these little worms are now, they got transferred to that one. They're in the process. I told them they were moving, and they had, they all packed up, and it was really, they moved up to the top one, and they left the bottom one alone. And so here I am taking the different boxes, the cardboards that come in, taking them apart. There's the worms. Some of them I save for later because they're delicious with the soil and everything. Really good to eat. Just run them out and chew on it, swallow it down the throat. Lovely. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I think these are the African ones. They're really big, as you can see. And
Yeah, I'd say those are the Africans. Yeah.
They suck your blood. This is like what the worm juice looks like.
Yeah.
That I'm ready to put in my garden. And this is my cat. She's the ninja cat. She's in the process of tagging every lizard on the property. There's not one lizard with a tail now. Right. And so I basically, this is a liquid that comes out of my truck. So what I do to people, I sell this. When I'm done, I usually have 10 or 30 gallons in the truck, and I sell it for $10 a gallon. They take it and they use that. And this is the so what I did, you can see I put what is this? It's an insulation.
Okay, like the bubble wrap insulation.
Yeah, I put an insulation all the way around it, which I think works better than painting it.
Yeah.
You know, it's about maybe an inch thick.
Well, and it would reflect, the silver reflects the heat.
Yeah.
And keeps the warmth in. We got some questions.
Go for it.
So let's hit some of these questions. Ghetto Hippie wants to know, would dried deciduous tree leaves be better than newspaper?
Now remember, newspaper comes from trees, so there are different processes. So yeah, but you can get if you can get a wide variety of things coming in, that would be cool. See, so
well, it's like compost. You need your greens and browns, right?
Right. So you want to get a wide variety of stuff. The local, anything from the local environment would be really cool. And then the cardboard is a lot harder to get. You want to get that because that's a very good, very excellent. They will eat that thing out. They move right in corrugated cardboard as long as it's organic. They move right into the little. I thought they were trapped. Are you guys trapped in there? No, we're not. They're eating. Shut up. Okay, fine.
They're eating the biology that's breaking down the cardboard or the carbon source.
That's right. That is so cool.
Yeah. Diggity dank. Good worm castings are nice and dense heavy. Some of the other castings from the store look fluff like fluff and sand. That goes black gold humic that turns the hands black. Is this the good? Well,
it really depends, but I would think you have some form of biochar in it, and that would give you your black.
Yeah, so, if it's turning your hands black, there's something more in there than just straight worm castings.
Right. So I would say
don't die.
So I would say it's a good indication that they're using some type of biochar in their production, which is really very good, which would generate a lot of more worms, and the worm castings will become even more valuable than they are by themselves. As a matter of fact, Michael's sells worm castings as well as the biochar mixed in together.
Yeah,
that's one of his products.
Okay,
so I use that all the time.
Okay, and then the last question from Scotty here. How does that not go anaerobic like an aerated tea does after 48 hours? And he's talking about when you have it in your bottling your leachate.
You talk about when in the container?
Yeah, how does it not just go anaerobic sitting there?
So I tell people you have to use it between 24 to 48 hours. You can't use it after that. It'll start talking to you because it will go bad and it will smell. And it's not that it's useless because you can pour it around plants and stuff. But if you want it to be nice and clean and functional, you want to do it between. So my liquid. So when I go out to spray, I make that stuff there on the job. I have a filter. I filter out the water. I have my mixture to it. Bubble. It gets used. Sometimes. So one of the things that happens is if I usually have the machine leaves about 20 gallons in the bottom. I don't know how they expect you to get the water out, but I can't. It's a different system. So if I leave it there overnight, 2 days later, 3 days later, the police are circling. There's a dead body here. We know it's here somewhere. Come out with your hands up, right? And so you have to use it. And so that my hose, it's an 800-foot hose. I have to literally make sure there's nothing left in that water in that hose because I come back 2 days later and I use it. Whoa.
Yeah,
now, that happens to be very good for certain diseases and a way to keep other animals out too. You can literally spray that around your property. No coyote or animal will come anywhere near it. But yeah, you do have to definitely here it is bubbling. So you definitely have, so this thing here has to be used within 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
There's no way around it. The only way is to freeze the thing, right? Put it in the freezer and somehow try to cool it down. It still will do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I want. I want it to be very highly active. Now's the time when it's the time to use it. Hit the like button. It helps, right? Or isn't there a I don't like button? No, never mind.
Don't hit that one. Don't hit that one. You know.
So a lady bought the quote ready to use. I have superseded. By the way, I'm making it again now. And
okay.
I talked to the post office, and I like to ship it to Canada. No problem. I just have to say, is there a liquid in there? Yes, ma'am. There was a liquid in there. It's called super blah blah. Anyway, so I'm making it again because I'm now have a place to make it from. But I also do the ready to use. This lady bought 5 gallons of the ready to use. And I said, it's called ready to use for a reason. And I tell people, ideally use it 24 hours. 48, you're pushing it, right? Use it in 24 hours. And this lady calls me up, says, I went away for the weekend. I came back and it stinks. I said, yeah, so I wouldn't spray it. I was just pouring it around. Why do you think I told you to use it? Oh, I didn't know. Why? I didn't know it would do that. Can I get a new batch? No, that's your batch right there, lady.
Well, you can pay me for a new batch. I'll make you a new batch. Not a problem.
Oh, yeah. So you can pay me for a new batch. So here I am putting in the mixture, and you can see that I have made a little minor change. Can you guys tell what the modification to my worm farm was?
Well, you got hinges and the plywood on the top. You got a screen there for air. So other than that,
there you go. That's exactly what it is. So there's no different layers. And I strip make a strip out of them. There are all kinds of cool things in there that they'll get. It's starting to produce. Like I said, I make between 5 and 20 gallons a week. It depends on how I make it. I also drink it. It's very, very good. The worm lychee, you drink it. That's it right there.
That's where I would be really concerned about other things being in there, Andy. That's what,
I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you. I'm not. That's just coffee. So you see, I basically have a hinge on it, aeration to make sure it gets enough air. The little thing holds it up. So it's just been, I've gone through so many different variations of these stuff. And the other thing too is, so the way you clean it, you have to have nice filtered water through it on a regular basis to wash it out. Otherwise, it will start. Everything will go. What is it when it goes bad? Everything will go bad on you, and the worms will die. So they have to, because it's in a container. So you're basically imitating Mother Nature. Mother Nature normally rains, and the water just goes through the soil, cleans them on, and goes somewhere and feeds it. But so that's what I do here. So and this very end over here. So the trick is not to dump a lot of water everywhere because the worms would not like all that water. Remember, the bottom part is the one that this part down here is the part that gets really concentrated with all the things that need to be washed out. The rest of this is airflow through here, air flowing through the whole thing. That's what you want, airflow through it. So there's no airflow through the side and over there. That's why the top is so important. When the top is closed, you still want to have plenty of airflow going through there. They will suck it up, right? So what I do is I have 5 gallons of clean distilled water, right? And I pour it very gently on this corner here. Just pour it straight down. So it'll come straight down and flow on an angle across, washing the base.
Okay, so you're not soaking the entire thing, you're just soaking one end?
Yeah, that's the only part that has to be cleaned out. The rest of this, it's all different layers. It will eventually come down, down, down. If you leave it alone, don't do anything, it'll be down to here.
Yeah.
So as a matter of fact, this is the second time that I have put stuff in here. When I first moved here, I did it. It was already down to here in this level. And then I just added more to bring it up again. You want to keep layering on a regular basis because all this stuff is new. It takes a while. By the time it gets down in here, it starts to break down. You don't recognize it. Everything meshes together. All the liquids come down to here. And unless you circulate these liquids, they will start stinking on you. I don't know what it means, but basically it's not a good idea. So you want
if it's stinking, then it's going aerobic, and you don't want that.
And if you want the worms to survive, you have to have a nice clean environment. So you want to put the clean distilled water to bring it down. Just pour it along the edges here, right? All in here, just 5 gallons is all I do. I won't, and you also have to, you can't do 5 gallons every day because remember, too much water, they drown. So basically, it's enough water that, so by pouring it over here, what happens is it absorbs water already. And the other reason why it gets watered a little bit on the top is that when I'm laying the newspapers down, I soak the newspapers or whatever it is, a paper that I'm cardboard, and I soak it in a 5 gallon of the worm juice. So when you're sitting up here, everything's soaking, all the water comes down because you do want to have a natural. Like a couple of times, I in Florida, I would allow it to rain. That's really cool. But in Florida, if it rains every day, no good, right?
Yeah.
I would let it rain a little bit and then cover it up again. Otherwise, the worms would die. So, and basically, this is where I make it. But I also put it in the sprayer and I spray directly onto the plants. So
the concentrate, are we talking you're spraying the concentrate or you're mixing it up first to a larger volume, or you're just putting the straight concentrate?
So what I do is I take that little container that has the there's another container inside of there's a smaller one that's basically not even a gallon, but basically inside here this is a 10-gallon unit.
Okay.
So it depends how much customers I have, but I usually fill it about 2 gallons with the liquid, and then I would fill the rest of it with clean distilled water, right?
Yeah.
And then I would add some of my other mixtures. I don't know if I should have taken a picture of that, but I have a different sources. I think I showed it to you guys when I was talking about how I make my super seaweed. I showed you some of the products I have. Well, that's the stuff that goes in here. See, there's a whole bunch of liquids, seaweeds from different parts of the world are clean. A couple of the C90. I have the C90 that goes in there. I also have Willard water, which we can talk about someday. Willard water. It's a structured water for trace minerals for the human body, but also happens to be a good source of trace minerals. Like that goes in there, and I have a bunch of different. I have things like different enzymes and different bacteria that go in there.
Yeah.
So that's the mixture that gets in there. Normally, I would coming up in the future, I'm going to take one of these units. I'm going to make my super seaweed inside of there because it's insulated. So I'll make 10 gallons of the concentrate. So the concentrate won't have the worm juice in it.
Okay.
If I put the worm juice in the concentrate and I put that in the mixture,
then it goes whoosh.
It's not going to get. It's not going to get past to be on the plane. Poof, what was that? It's a bomb. The guy loaded up a bomb. It blew up, and So I just all of the concentrate has is basically the liquid seaweed and all those stuff in there. It's concentrated by itself, nothing else. But you add the microbes to it, you go boosh. That's what I do. I add the two together, and that's what I spray. So, but
because your super seaweed and your C90 and that isn't full of biology so much as it's just the building blocks that the biology needs.
Right.
So as soon as you add the leachate, you're going to have an explosion of biology.
I call it a microbiological activator. Yeah. And the secret to it is that as much trace minerals as I can cram in there in a liquid form, and something like to have enzymes and bacteria that will break it down. Certain types of humic acid will help to break it down, but not so much to break it down, assimilate it, but to pre-process it so that when the microbes get to it, or the biology gets to it, they will absorb it, convert it in however way they're going to do it, and that's what we want to get out to the leaves and to the soil. See, right? And I've learned from experience, it's absolutely amazing as to what it does to diseases. Because you spray that on a disease, whether it's internal or it's a systemic disease that's inside the plant or something that's outside the plant. So if it's outside, like a bug, you spray this stuff on a bug, you'll be surprised. I wish you could have a little video of the thing with what it does, because it'd be going, spray it on ants. They do not like it. Why? Because it breaks down their natural system, defense systems that they have, goes right into their bodies and just kills them. Right.
Well, you're sending in the Army, the Navy, and the Marines all without biology that breaks things down.
Right. And so in nature, you would think they naturally have evolved that way. Everything has evolved that way. So that works really cool. I also have this thing hanging down because when the sun comes in, there's this section here on the one. This section over here gets super hot. Right. Yeah. So I put that little cloth down there drop it down, and in the background is where I'm going to be doing bonsai.
And here I thought you were putting that down so you could take a shower in leachate or something.
Oh yeah, baby, yeah. So this is a little container that gets filled. This whole thing gets filled in two or three times. Usually gets filled to there. Come back in the morning. But you see, I covered it with a really nice insulation. You could paint it. My instinct says I don't want to use anything unless it's really non-toxic. I would paint it with milk, maybe milk or milk powder. I don't know what kind of paint you could use. Acrylic. I don't think acrylic's non-toxic enough. You know.
Now, Scotty wants to know: do you feed them kelp at all?
Kelp. Well, you don't really have to feed them kelp, but I actually it's not. I do. I would say okay. Yeah, I have. Okay. Yes, but I don't feed them because I think they need the minerals and all that stuff. But I have been feeding them lately because what I was doing with my super seaweed, I was feeding them, giving them kelp. Now the kelp was not dissolving like everything else does. You end up with little pieces of kelp in it, little chunks of stuff. So my machine did not like it. When I put in the sprayer, my screen came up with all this. I said, "Where is this coming from?" It's the kelp. So now I have to say yes because I'm in a habit of kelp is amazing stuff. Has amazing biology in it and amazing nutrient source in it. And so I would drink kelp.
Would you feed like raw kelp? Like, okay, somebody lives at the ocean, you go down, you pick kelp up from the beach, throw it in, or would you let that dry first? Because like Silly Lily is also mentioning that wouldn't kelp be rich in sodium because it's coming out of the ocean? So would you wash it first, or
when I lived in Florida? Remember Florida Keys? So I was down in Miami. As a kid, I would drive down to Florida Keys. So when I got older. One day I was driving down the Florida Keys and I see this giant pile of kelp on the beach, and thank you, and a trailer. Talk to me. We're collecting all the kelp. We're making a pile. We're throwing it away. I go, okay. Do you care where you throw it away? Because I could give you a nice place to throw it away to. So they brought it to. I had a place. It was not that far away, and actually it was on their way to the dump. So they brought it to me. And what I did was I dried it. So I made a wooden floor pallet with pallets of plywood down, put it on there, let it dry. When it dry, you shaped it. You got all the salt off. You had a pile of salt and you had the kelp. That was the good old days because the kelp could be dried into a powder and spray. And the salt it usually was clean too. You can actually use it. You can actually use it as a spray, but you have to go a little tiny bit. That's I use C90 now, and C90 is basically salt.
Yeah, it's from Baja, California. It's an old salt bed, an old ocean bed.
Right. So I figure, okay, salt's good because it has sodium, it has all the trace minerals. But I don't anymore. I stopped. Let's see, when did I stop? It was like when I came here in '84. I was already going. The ocean's getting polluted. The ocean's getting polluted. Rah, rah, the ocean's getting polluted. The ocean, right? I'm going, no. That was in '84. So when I came to Malibu, I was not going to go out there and get the sea kelp because that stuff is toxic now. Surfers are getting cuts, they're getting all kinds of things. They're like, holy cow. And they don't want you to eat the fish. So the kelp absorbs all this stuff. It could be even radioactive. It could have that's why my product, I'm having an issue because I call it super seaweed, but I'm using less and less seaweed in it.
Yeah,
and I use my Sure Crop. I think it's Sure Crop or Micro. I forgot the name of it. It comes from the northern Atlantic. But even then, the North Atlantic is like, poof. So
it's everywhere. Like microplastics. It's in Antarctica.
Exactly. If you test that stuff, you're gonna go. I don't think we should be using it. So I would say.
Do you have another question when you're done? Yeah,
when I'm done. So I would say, look, be real careful with that. She's like, I hope you don't eat fish every day, right? Or what is it? Oysters. I love those things. I can't eat them. If I eat once a year, I feel like eating too much because it's toxic. There's so full of stuff in there. So you have to find another source. You can't go farm either. Farm raised either. So I would say, don't use it. Find other source. Okay.
Well, and like somebody was mentioning heavy metals. Are you going to get heavy metals out of it, right?
Yeah, and the amounts that you do not want. You're not going to die from it right away. So take 5 or 10 years down the road, you're going to have your liver's going to. You'll be walking down the road, and the guy, excuse me, your liver just fell out right here, right? Your liver,
Do you want this back?
yeah, it's like be a
You might
heartbeat
need this.
and you know. So no, I don't get me carried away. What's the question? There's another question.
Okay, so the Colorado Worm Company from Build a Soil is like super heavy and dense compared to, say, a wiggle worm that's just really black on the hands. Is there a difference between vermicompost and worm castings? And yes, there's a big one.
Yeah,
Andy, do you know the answer?
well, the worm castings have been dried out. They've been they're not in a compost form. You're like compost. A worm castings you can it's like a more of a powdery thing. It's been cleaned, and comes from the worms. And the vermicompost is mainly it's a mixture. It's like compost, which has everything you put into it, including the worms.
Andy,
And
I think maybe I should take this one because there's the biggest difference between worm castings, which is what Andy is doing. He's throwing in all these vegetables, etc., and vermicompost is the bedding. You're not starting with Andy's mix where you're doing all this. You're you're making your compost. Then that's what you're using in your worm bin for your worms. They're eating the compost you've already made. That's how you're getting vermicompost. So they're eating the compost. That's their bedding instead of the cardboard and all the fruit and that you're throwing in. It's strictly compost that they're eating.
That's the difference. Oh, cool.
That's the difference.
Because I give them a whole bunch of other stuff, but if you give them compost and that's what they eat and that's what you have left, that's a whole different thing.
It takes your compost to a whole new level.
Yeah,
and then if you take that worm castings and you make a concentrate, it's even better.
I think I'm going to have to do that. I think I'm going to actually have to get another farm set up, which I'm going to specifically add my compost to feed the worms to and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I've been trying to get Troy Hinkie to come on because like he's an expert in vermicompost, etc. I've been trying to sucker him on, but he's so darn busy.
Try to sucker him on.
I gotta send him a worm and tell him he's got to bring a worm, bring him the worm on.
Tell him you give him several $1,000s if he comes. So
okay, so what are we looking at, Andy? I saw you had the full screen in there.
Yeah, I put the screen in there because that makes a really cool way to keep it from everything getting the worms out.
Yeah.
So I just put the whole thing in there like that, and I layered it up.
I have a question though. Are you sealing it on the bottom?
No, I'm lazy.
Space for the water to go underneath it as well.
Yeah. No, I didn't seal it. I just laid it down there. Water would run through. But otherwise, I would probably put some kind of putty on it and let it sit on the putty.
Well, I was just thinking if you're doing that though, because you have that 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch of plastic, you'd actually have to have the moisture come up above that before it would flow through.
A little bit higher, right? A little bit higher.
Yeah, so you'd have to have a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch of water laying in the bottom of that.
Is what I don't want.
And yeah, exactly. You don't want that.
I want the water to be flowing through there. So that's probably why it evolved that way. It says, I don't want anything sitting down there that'll block it or build it up. So you have a layer of water down there. Every time you have a layer of water, the first thing you see is thousands and not hundreds of thousands of dead floating worms.
Yes. Yeah.
And
now, the thing is, Andy, if you have and I had an aquaponic system, so growing fish in water, I can put a worm in pure straight water as long as there's enough dissolved oxygen in that water. Remember, guys, worms breathe through their flesh, through their skin.
You mean it could be in the water if there's enough oxygen in it?
If there's enough oxygen in there, then they can continue to breathe and live.
So if I bubble it, if I aerate it, it will be okay?
The thing is, you can't really aerate that compost pile so much. Where in aquaponics you're dealing with a water environment that's full of water. So you're aerating that water. It's hard to aerate, your leachate in the system itself. But once you've brought it out and you're in a container, you could dump worms in it all day. As long as there's an air stone in there giving the dissolved oxygen, they would survive. They wouldn't be happy though.
This is what the worm compost looks like.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Worm castings. That's worm castings.
Yeah, right. The worm castings, yeah. Right.
Now that I dry out, I put in gel caps and I eat that to get biology back into my guts where I need it. Lily actually used to have a real trouble with drinking coffee. It was affecting her. So I just made some worm casting pills. She ate that. Bang. She hasn't had a problem.
Too. You put it on the screen. You put it on.
What's that?
You put it on a screen and dry it.
I just let it dry out. I tried to do fresh out of the worm bin, and literally the gel caps melted. The biology started eating. I could put a liquid in these gel caps, never have to worry. But I put fresh worm castings in there, and they just went all squishy and melty. The biology was literally breaking down the gel caps. So you have to dry it first before you do it. I made that mistake.
Johnson Sioux
Johnson Sioux bioreactor. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Dr. David Johnson, he was the reason he built it was he was doing straight cow manure, and they wanted a better way to compost it. His wife was getting really frustrated with him coming home smelling like shit all the time. So they built a round environment. There's a lot to it, but it's a static compost. You build it as long as you keep it from freezing is one big thing, and aerated and at 70% moisture. So they have a water that's set on a timer where it puts water in every day.
A good source of compost using it that way.
You can make one of the better sources of compost. It does take 1 year for it to actually.
A year for me is like 37 years. So it better be very good for me to take a whole year to make compost. But the end of the year, literally, I remember I was making something, but I don't remember what it was now. It's like, holy cow, what was it? They take a year. Honey, what did I? Oh, no, I can't. Why does it take a year?
Because what you're doing is, because you're never turning it or anything like that, you're letting the biology building it down. It does go through the heat up cycle. When it's come down to like 110 or something like that, when worms can survive in it, you would add the worms in. That will finish it, but it takes a year for it to break down. But when it's done, it's almost like clay putty.
Do the worms die too, or you have to take them out?
No, you don't put the worms in until after the heating cycle.
Right.
But yeah, there's Lily just posted a documentary on the Johnson Sioux. It's actually very easy to make them.
I can't get at it from here, Lily. I'll copy it. I got to copy it. I got it.
All right, there you go. Yeah.
All right, guys. I don't know what we're doing next week, but you're gonna have to come back and find out. You know what I wanted to do a show on forever chemicals.
Yeah, well, I don't know that much about forever chemicals, so maybe we can find somebody or somebody that's an expert, because sure the hell I'm not.
Leighton says he's going to have a guest on. To ask him a professor or something about that.
Okay.
Forever chemicals. So maybe we can just have a show on it. Because I believe that the biology can take care of these chemicals.
And they can. You have to if you've not Terrence Howard, he's the one that introduced me to the guy, but I think Walter Russell is his name, and how he looks at the periodic table and how the biology literally takes iron. It has all the different components of what is made out of it. And the biology will literally take that iron molecule by molecule, strip it down until it reaches its base components. and you
Why
get
can't you
rid
do
of
that
those
with forever?
forever chemicals because
Why
they're
can't you do
breaking
that?
it down.
Right. Exactly right. That's exactly what you have to do. And I think
Yeah.
the real problem is that most places do not have any biology. That's why the forever chemicals are gone nuts, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So they're talking about, all these forever chemicals around all the bases, right? And everybody lives around the bases. Without bases, there's no soil there, no livings anywhere. All the property that they're living on. So might be a good idea to you bring the biology back in the soil for starters to help start to remove the forever chemicals.
Well, the only way that we can do it is letting the biology break it down. It's like Leighton has talked about, some of the work that he's doing with the muncher juice, where they're taking these chemicals, running it through, and the chemical is gone coming out the other end because the biology has literally taken that molecule that makes up the chemical, pulled the components off that molecule.
Right.
So it's no longer that molecule, it's all these different ones that can be used. And unless you combine those back and force them back together, that chemical literally doesn't exist in that system anymore.
So the solution is right there in front of our face in terms of how do we start cleaning up these chemicals from our environment.
Yeah. And it's by the biology, brother.
It's by the biology. You got it. Take care, everybody.
Hey, guys.
See you later.
Don't forget Tom Landry on Monday with Leighton Morrison's Horizontal Soil System in a commercial grow. We're going to have an update from him this coming Monday. John should be back on with me on Monday again on the OG's Power Hour. And of course, Andy, we're not sure what we're talking about next week. So you guys will have to come back to find out.
Yeah. Yes. Bye now.
Peace out, everybody.